Oh my goodness. All right, let's talk about Jeezy. Like, I sat here, I watched a 1 hour interview with Jeezy and Nia Long. Let me just tell you something. I am drained. Emotionally, physically, spiritually, I am drained. My energy is depleted after watching these two go back and forth and have a conversation and just talk in circles the whole time. And it was just, it was literally a therapy session. I don't, look, here's what I determined. Here's what I determined. And I don't know if you watched this conversation too. I'm assuming you did. I've determined that Jeezy and Nia Long, y'all might as well just get married. Just go ahead and tie the knot. It's a match made. I was going to say a match made in heaven, but I'm not going to go that far. I don't know about that. But it's a match made here on earth. Y'all should just tie the knot. Just go ahead and do it. Y'all seem perfect for one another. I don't know. Look, I don't know if you know the full story. So Jeezy recently filed for divorce from his wife, right? His wife is this Asian woman right here. I don't know how to say her name. She used to be a television. Well, I think she actually still is a television host. Janine Mao or Jenny Mao. I don't know how to say her name. I'm not trying to be disrespectful, but he filed for divorce and it was massive news. I don't know why this is such a huge headline. Like, celebrities get divorced every single month, but yet the media acts like this is like a groundbreaking news for whatever reason. But the reason why I found this to be interesting is because Jeezy was saying that God essentially told him that it was time for him to leave his marriage, which I found to be very interesting because that don't sound like something that God would say. I mean, I don't know what God, if we're talking about the same God. I'm talking about the big God. I'm not talking about the God of this world. You know what I mean? So let me show you this interview. Not the whole interview, just a couple clips that I thought were interesting and that I have some things to say about. This first clip I want to show you is Jeezy talking about his divorce, because throughout this whole hour-long interview, it was only like a 3-minute clip where he actually addressed his divorce. And I thought the whole interview was supposed to be about the divorce. I don't know. But anyway, this clip, it says Jeezy speaks about divorce with his ex-wife and reveals that therapy could not save his marriage. Let me just play this clip and then we'll have a conversation about it.
We haven't talked about is your current marriage and your current situation. And I think it would be unfair to you to not address that in this space where we're being really open and honest. And it doesn't have to be the details of anything.
Right.
But if you've done all of this work and you've given yourself that grace and you've given yourself that space to grow and you've given yourself permission to love self, right? Then what happens when a man gets to the point where they're just like, okay, I'm filing for divorce?
Integrity intact. I could never say anything that would not honor somebody.
Absolutely.
But I can tell you that this has not been a easy journey.
Right.
I can tell you that I'm saddened. I can tell you that I'm disappointed. I can tell you that I'm uneasy, right? But again, like, God has put me in a different path, and that path is going to entail for me to take care of myself and to love myself and to be in the best situation that I can thrive as someone who's been through all the things that I've been through.
It's kind of something you can't explain.
Yeah, you can't. The real thing is, like, I don't like to fail in anything.
Me either.
And
I don't want to lose. I don't want to fail.
I don't want to fail, especially when I know what
you've poured in.
Right. And, as I sit across from you, like, I can only be responsible for myself.
True.
And I can only do what I can do. Right.
Look, I found that to be very interesting. He said God essentially said, look, it's time. It's time for you to move on. It's time for you to focus on yourself, focus on your own health and this, that, and the third. It's time for you to move on. He also said that, essentially he made it sound like I was putting in all this effort and I wasn't really receiving the same type of effort in return. Like, it wasn't being reciprocated. That's kind of what it sounded like. And I don't know what happened. I don't know if she cheated on him. I don't know what the details are. And I do respect that he's not just bashing her off the rip and not just being outright disrespectful up until this point. Because some things should be sacred. Some things you don't need to be sharing with the media. Like, you got to have some privacy that you just keep in house between you and your family. You don't need to be sharing everything on the internet. So I do respect that, but I don't know. It's making it sound like she cheated on him or something of that nature. And, it's interesting because obviously I don't know what took place, but I'm just using this as an example to have this conversation. In this world, it's like, number one, we don't respect marriage. That's number one. We've seen countless examples of that. This society does not respect marriage. Number two is that it seems like there's so many people, and just look at the divorce rates. The divorce rates are higher than the success rate of marriage. It seems like so many people are looking for justification to leave their marriage as opposed to looking for reasons to work it out for the sake of their family. That's what it seems like. And I'm not trying to pick on, Jeezy and his ex-wife specifically, but, obviously they're the topic of the discussion for this conversation. Now, I want to play this clip too, because this was an interesting clip, and I'll just keep it real. I'll just be kind of honest. I don't know if y'all felt the same way. Nia Long, oh, my goodness gracious. I'm not saying she can't talk, but she was talking a lot during this interview. Like, I kind of just wanted to hear what Jeezy was saying. Nia Long, let me just play this clip. I don't want to be rude. Let me play this clip.
Gave my life for it to work.
The last question that I have is, we have established that everything starts with love. But I don't think we can grow into that real deep love and acceptance that this whole conversation has been about without forgiveness. Right. So what do you do when you know you have to forgive someone? For me, I'll tell you what I do.
Okay.
When I know that I have to forgive someone, when I'm in my bed quietly meditating, I literally send them love vibrations. I literally send them, like, visualize the person's face, and I send them love vibrations, because by me releasing love towards them, I no longer have to be connected to the negative feeling of being hurt and disappointed. Right. I have actually sliced that, chopped that down. You don't have access to me. There may never be another conversation, but energetically, I know that I can send love to someone, and it actually helps my healing. Now, whether they receive it or not, I don't really care. Right. It's more for me. Okay. And sometimes we don't need an explanation from the other person as to why it's so important to forgive. But I promise you, you could do all this work that you're doing right now. We could do all have these conversations. If you are not able to forgive, you will hit the wall again.
But here's the thing. Based on her definition of how she forgives, that's not forgiveness. That's not forgiveness. And I've said this before in my own personal life, is like, forgiveness is for you. Like, you need to forgive because your lack of forgiveness is keeping you in bondage. And that's true, but we can't just make forgiveness a completely one-sided activity. It can't just be based and rooted in selfishness. I mean, look at Jesus, for example. Look at God. The forgiveness that God offers us is unconditional, and the forgiveness was correlated with action. Jesus died on the cross so that our sins could be forgiven. If we're saying that we forgive someone, quote unquote, but we're just sending them love vibrations from our bedroom and not actually reaching out to that person, making amends with that person, not truly forgiving that person and letting it be known between both parties that there is true forgiveness, whether they accept it or not. Whether they accept it or not, forgiveness can't just be one-sided. It's not just a solo activity. You have to offer forgiveness to the person that you're actually forgiving. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know. I don't know. I thought this clip was interesting too. Let me play this clip.
Actually come together, because there's nothing more important to me than Black people.
Right.
We are the greatness in every room.
Right.
We are the ones who set it off and make it happen. We are the ones that create the culture. We are the artists. We are the artistes. We are the voices that lead the masses. But what has always hurt me to the core is, why is there this dismantlement of the Black family? Why isn't it that Black men and Black women can't sit like you and I are sitting in a space and have really open dialogues about things and work through the trauma? Because that's the only way we can really be productive.
You said if it couldn't work, then you would leave.
So she said that there's nothing more important to her than Black people. Understand, I love my Black people. I want to see Black people succeed. I want to see Black people win. I want to see Black people be the best that we can be, you know, because so many of us are hurting. So many of us are in bondage. But you also got to understand something at the same time, because, you know, she said, why can't we sit down like this as Black men and women and have these conversations and truly be healed? You got to understand something. Idolatry comes in many different forms. She said the most important thing to her is Black people. The most important thing in any of our life, I'm sure you already know where I'm going with this, should be Jesus Christ. That should be the most important thing. Because to the answer of your question, how come we can't sit down and have these conversations and open up emotionally and heal and fix generational curses? It's because we're not putting Jesus first in our life. We're choosing to walk by the flesh. And when we're choosing to obey our flesh and walk by the flesh, we're experiencing the fruit of the flesh in our life. And let me just run this back, because I don't know, I just talked about this, but I don't know how many of y'all actually seen this. Galatians 5, verse 16. But I say, walk by the Spirit, and you will not gratify the desires of the flesh. For the desires of the flesh are against the Spirit, and the desires of the Spirit are against the flesh, for these are opposed to each other, to keep you from doing the things that you want to do. So everyone has goals, aspirations, dreams. They have this expectation of what their life is going to look like, what their marriage is going to look like, what their family is going to look like, all these type of things, right? And we're talking about marriage and relationships, so let's just keep it focused on that topic. If we're living by the flesh as opposed to living by the Spirit, we are always going to be kept from the things that we want to do, because the fruit of the Spirit is more prevalent. I mean, the fruit of the flesh is more prevalent in our life than the fruit of the Spirit. And what are the fruits of the flesh? Sexual immorality, impurity, idolatry, sorcery, strife, jealousy, fits of anger, rivalries, division, envy, drunkenness, all of these things. This is why we have so much conflict. It's because we're choosing not to live according to the love and grace that is given to us by Jesus Christ. We're choosing not to submit to Jesus and put him first in our relationships, in our marriage. But instead, we're choosing to be led by our own understanding and by our own wisdom. And our own wisdom is rooted in a sinful nature. Our own wisdom is going to produce what is known as the works of the flesh, which is what I just read. So we have to shift our mindset. We have to shift our perspective onto Jesus. And when we put Jesus first, then we experience the fruit of the Spirit, which is love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, goodness, faithfulness, gentleness, self-control. But so many of us are in bondage because we're choosing to obey our flesh over our spirit, and our flesh is literally tearing us apart. And we have no reason what's going on. We have no, we don't know what's going on. We can't figure it out. Our flesh has us spinning in circles, trying to figure, like we're chasing our tails, trying to figure out what the issue is. The issue is you're not submitting to the one true God. You're not submitting to Jesus Christ. You're not putting that first in everything that you do. You're not seeking his wisdom first in everything that you do. And it's not easy to follow the Spirit. It's not easy to walk by the Spirit. That's why it says the Spirit and the flesh are at war. If you're walking by the Spirit, it's going to be difficult. But it's going to be beneficial for you in the long run, for your family, for your marriage, for your relationships. It's going to be beneficial. It might be difficult, but it's going to be beneficial. You choose which one that you want. So many people are quick to leave a marriage and to break up a family. So many people are looking for reasons and are always looking for the negative in their partner as opposed to looking for the positives. What you should be doing instead is looking for the negative within yourself and trying to fix that. And while you're looking for the negatives in yourself and trying to fix that, you should be looking at the positives in your partner. That's what we should be doing. But we've always been, we've been taught and we've been conditioned to say, well, you know, if it doesn't feel right, then you just got to do what's best for you so that you can be happy. We've been conditioned to live according to our feelings, which is living according to our flesh. And that's why we're seeing these negative outcomes happen all around us. So instead of idolizing our skin color, we need to idolize God. That's the only idol that you should have in your life, is God, is Jesus Christ. Because that's going to be the solution to everything. You're going to find so much peace and abundance and ultimately life in Jesus Christ. So look, I mean, I always say this. I'm not trying to preach, but I always end up preaching. Anyway, what did y'all think about this interview? Did y'all watch this interview? This was a long interview. I'm trying to tell y'all, it took a lot of energy for me to sit and watch this. It really did. But look, I pray that if anyone is dealing with difficulty in your marriage, I pray that God gives you a deeper perspective to look for the positives in your spouse and not just focus on the negatives. Because the enemy wants to break up marriages. The enemy wants to instill these generational curses within your family. And you could be the one that could put a stop to that. But you got to recognize what's happening all around you. This is spiritual warfare. You got to recognize what's going on. You know what I mean? So once again, I don't know the exact specifics of what happened in Jeezy's marriage, but I'm really just using it as an example to have a conversation about marriage in general. Let me know what you think. Get in my comments, like this video. I'm out, y'all.